Hey, Jackie, I'm so excited to have you on the show today. It's something that we've talked about, and when I was able to go out and visit you in Amsterdam recently, but we've had an amazing time, an amazing relationship over the years, and I'm excited to have you unpack some of your story, some of the things that we've collaborated on together, and some of what your future in design is transforming into. So
great. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here. I know it was totally spur of the moment. I just flew into Amsterdam last week, but I am so honored that you're including me in your podcast.
Yeah, this is so exciting.
Yeah.
So tell me, from a design inspiration story, why did you get into interior design?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think it just was born in me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I think some of my first design memories are at about 6 or 7, going up, into, maybe 10. My brothers built this dollhouse for me when I was little, and I was into Barbies, right?
Yeah.
So, but they built this, and it was a big old rectangular box, just cut in like thirds. And they put like a little steeple on it. You know how little kids draw like houses?
Yeah.
Like rectangle. It looked like that, but
That's
it was
awesome.
like 5 feet tall. It was big.
Oh, wow.
So I would spend hours decorating and redecorating each of these rooms.
Yeah.
Now the kitchen was on the bottom, and then I had to make sure that the living room had a fireplace, and I would cut like carpet and fabric to match, to fit the rooms, and it would constantly be changing. So I did this probably from the time that I was 6 until 10, until I probably got tweeny.
Outgrew it.
Yeah.
And then, so you obviously went to high school, and you're trying to figure out who you are as a human and what are you going to do. Tell me
exactly
from there.
So I ended up going to college at the University of Nebraska at Lincoln.
There you go.
And go Big Red.
Yeah.
Growing up in Nebraska with a family of 7, we didn't really have a choice. We needed to go to UNL.
Yeah.
So I ended up going to UNL, and I got a double major, and in business and interior design at the time. So I thought I could, and the business part was focused on marketing, like business marketing, and then interior design. So it was always kind of in my DNA, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So after high school, after college, did you go directly into design work?
Interestingly enough, no. No. I kind of put all of that on the shelf. Graduating from college, I moved directly to California. And I ended up using the side of my marketing degree, to work in higher education, of all things.
There you go.
And I worked for a law school, doing their marketing programs, and then I just fell into higher ed. And then I ended up moving to Seattle. And in Seattle, I transferred to a college called Seattle Pacific University. And I was a director of marketing for their grad and PhD programs. Let me just back up a little bit, because when I was in California and I was working in higher education, the school that I worked for offered basically education for the employees, right? So I was getting my master's degree.
Yeah.
So I was in the process of getting my master's degree, and the master's degree is in organizational leadership. So there was a lot of prodding going on with that program. It's like, what do you really want to do?
Yeah.
And finally I just kind of woke up and it's like, I just want to do interior design.
Yeah.
Why? Why have I been kind of going down this path? So I ended up getting my master's degree and then moving to Seattle, and then I got married to Mike at that time in 2001. And I started taking I'm like, I got to brush on my interior design. So I ended up going and getting more interior design classes under my belt. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Well, with your design passions and then your creative in that marketing world background, you get to do design in that. Right? I mean, it's not the same design, but it's still creative.
It was very creative work.
Yeah, marketing is really creative. And then, so you're in Seattle, you've brushed up on your skills, and you're ready to take on the world.
I am going to take on the world.
What'd you do?
I quit my job.
There you go. Yeah.
And I took a leap of faith.
Yeah.
And with the support of Mike.
Yes.
He's just like, go for it, Jackie. Go for your dream. This is what you've always wanted to do. And even though, I just kind of started working out of a room in my house. And then I moved into an office with a fabricator. And then I moved out on my own. And by the end of my stint in Seattle as an interior designer, I had 3 assistants. Yeah. And we were rocking it.
You really grew a good business over there.
We did. I did.
I mean, good enough to be mentioned and highlighted in Seattle.
I did.
What was it? The Seattle Home and Garden magazine?
It was Seattle Homes. I was featured as the Design Achievement of the Year.
Wow.
And it was on the front cover, and it's a project I'm very proud of. It was in Lake Union. And talk about this was an interesting project. It was a condo.
No, I've heard this story. I love this story. I'm excited for you to tell it again. So tell it again. Really good.
Yeah, so it was this couple, and he was a real estate developer, and they had homes everywhere, but they specifically had a very nice home in Hawaii, and they left in October, and they wanted this. I went through the whole process with them, the design. We got all the design approved and ready to go, and okay, they're leaving town on October 15th, and they wanted it done by January 15th. So, as you know, and this was a full-on gut job construction project.
Yes, not the easy ones.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. So I learned a lot on that, but that was the fruit of that labor that I got the Design Achievement Award for that project.
So that's the one that's in Seattle Lifestyle?
That was in, Seattle Homes.
Seattle Homes. That's so cool.
And I got that very nice accolade from this community, the design community in Seattle. So, so that was a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and a lot of learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Jackie, you were in Seattle Homes, and you also had an article in Seattle Home and Garden.
Yes. Okay. And Better Homes and Gardens.
Better Homes and Gardens.
Better Homes and Gardens, a national shelter magazine that everyone knows. It's on the newsstand across the nation.
So you were highlighted in that for another project you did.
Yeah, and that was awesome. for a very special project.
Yeah.
That project was through a friend that I was singing in a gospel choir, and
come on, Jackie.
Yeah, I know, right?
I want to hear it. We got the mics and the headphones. I want to hear you singing.
I have a CD of our gospel choir, and we sang at Benaroya Hall.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. But
all the sides of Jackie.
Yeah. So it was through a friend connection through this gospel choir, and she goes, I have this friend who I'd like for you to meet, and this was before 9/11.
Yeah.
This was the summer before 9/11. So I connected with Faith, and her name was Faith, and she was living in New York City. And she was the COO of Aon Corporation and had a very important job there and lived right across the street. She invited me. We were working on her project. She invited me to New York City so that we could work together at the design center there. And she had a very impressive, beautiful apartment across from the UN, United Nations building there. And so we're starting working on this project. And I'm back in Seattle, September 11th. Well, I'll never forget that day. She said it was just such a beautiful day. And I decided to stay at the apartment for one more cup of tea. And normally I'm there by 7:30 in the morning, making sure that I'm greeting everyone. And she decided to head in around 9 a.m. So as she was coming up off the subway, she saw the plane hit her building. And she was in the first tower on the 84th floor. So 150 of the employees were gone instantly. It's just still sad to talk about.
Yeah. I don't know if you can get over that.
I don't think you can. And she never did. Her life, so many people's lives changed instantly that day.
Absolutely.
And she decided that she ended up basically going to the war room. Basically, I don't know if they call it the war room, but that's where she went, to the basement of another building with the mayor, who at the time was Rudy Giuliani. And she was fielding phone calls for all of the employees. And so the project was put on hold for a bit, and then she decided to go ahead and retire and move to Seattle, where she bought a beautiful 900 square foot Spanish colonial apartment in Cary Park.
Nice.
And the ironic thing about this is that Mike didn't live too far from that apartment, and so many times I would be walking by there. I'm like, oh my gosh, I love that apartment. I love that apartment building. It was built in the 1920s. It's so historic. It is beautiful. And then I'd love to do a project there.
Wouldn't that? Yeah, you're dreaming about it.
I was dreaming about it. And lo and behold, Faith bought a property there.
Oh, nice.
So, when I went in and we started over, and I said, what is the most important thing for this project? And she said, I just want to feel safe.
Yeah.
So, when you get into interior design, you get into people's lives.
Yeah.
You get to know them. You really get to touch their lives. So that's really how I find it very personal. And it's very, very, very important for clients to trust you, right?
Yes.
So lay that just as a builder.
Mm-hmm. They got to trust.
You see the nitty gritty,
Yeah.
Of so many. You see good days, and then we see, not so good days. But the bottom line, the baseline is that they trust you. So Faith was still in New York City. And so this was another project that I was kind of taking on my own, where I had a big theme of, one of the themes of her life were birds and sparrows. So I had some tiles handmade for her kitchen that were sparrows. We had found a beautiful mirror for the bathroom that was all birds. And so there's this like subtle theme of birds and peace and tranquility throughout the apartment. And I asked her what was your favorite place you've ever lived? Because she had lived all over the world for, working for this large company. And she goes, well, I loved living in the Bahamas because I could just open these plantation shutters that were floor to ceiling, and I could just go out on the veranda, and it was just beautiful. So I recreated that in her little 12 by 12 bedroom. I created these, there was just standard old windows, and I created these cabana shutters from floor to ceiling, and they were beautiful shade of blue.
And I think in small spaces, you have to be so much more into the details, because you don't have a lot of wall space. You don't have a lot of things that you can pull off, and something could be very overpowering. And in a big space, you're like, I got to fill all this space.
Yeah.
But in a space like that, I've seen photos of it, and it's just gorgeous.
Thank you.
So
thank you. And that happened to be published on the 5th 5-year anniversary of 9/11.
Okay.
So it was published, a couple years after I finished the project. But it was still a story.
Yeah.
And it was still, the story is beautiful. It's about her reflection on living in a safe space. And she ended up finding a nonprofit in Seattle for the homeless. So it completely shifted her paradigm.
Kind of like when you left the business world and said, hey, I'm going to go pursue my passion.
Right.
I mean, something like 9/11 triggered that in so many people.
Yes.
Faith. Okay, I'm going to do something. Time is short.
Time is short, right?
Something that brings joy to your heart.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you were in Seattle. Then you came to Colorado.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's when we first met you guys.
Yes.
You and Mike. And you guys were probably around 2009.
It was 2009.
It
exactly.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you guys were living in a house that we had built.
Yes.
It wasn't your home.
It was not.
And you lived in that home for how many years?
Until we moved into the house that you built for us.
Yes. Well,
in 2015.
Yeah.
So it was quite
good 6 years.
What I loved about living in that house, that spec house that you built, was we were so, like, when anything, things kind of sometimes, go off kilter, but you are always there. Like Brian and you were always there when something, and it really, again, it built that trust.
Yeah.
So it built that trust that to know that, oh, okay, they're going to build our house.
Yeah.
Right.
That was fun.
Yeah.
So, and during your time in Colorado, were you continuing with your interior design, or did you?
So I took a little break because Anna was 4 or 5 at the time. And so I was working so much, and I was just, I needed to take a break just to be a mom for a little bit.
That's
right.
Good.
So,
golf.
And golf.
Yes.
So it was
You're quite the golfer.
Yes. So it was my golf years and
mom years.
Mom years.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
Just,
so cool.
it was like 4 or 5 years or so. But again, as it did as a child, I'm like, kept pulling me back, pulling me back to interior design.
Thanks for listening to Built by Insights. Tune in next Friday to hear the second episode.